Hi guys, this is Mrs. Gassler, and in this video we're going to talk about chemical formulas, and it's going to be fun because we're going to go back to elementary school and talk about how to write different letters. Alright, so I've got some Cornell paper here. I filled it out a little bit. You need to make sure that you have your name, date, and class period on your Cornell paper. Our topic is chemical formulas, and our essential question is what information is in a chemical formula and how do I write a chemical formula? So in order to talk about what we can find from a chemical formula and how to write one, we really need to understand penmanship and how to be able to write a formula properly. And when we say penmanship, we're talking about writing your letters correctly. And we also have numbers in our formulas, so we need to make sure we're writing those correctly also. Okay, so back to elementary school. I have this lovely thing. Maybe you've seen this, maybe it's been a while. This is what it used to look like when you first started writing letters. You've got this penmanship paper here with a line where you write on, and then it's got this middle of the line dashed, and then a top. When I learned it, we had an attic and an upstairs. It's not writing. There's tape there. And a downstairs. And we had a basement, which is funny. I grew up in Texas. Nobody has a basement there anyway. But when we talked about how big the letters were, we would talk about where in this house the letters belonged. So we've got four different types of letters here. And these up here are called capital letters. Capital letters are letters that are big. They take up the upstairs and downstairs. And a special thing about capital letters is that they're usually different than a lowercase letter. So I'm going to put a star there. They are different than lowercase. Lowercase letters are sometimes the same, but for the most part they're a different letter altogether. These numbers that are kind of floating up here, letters, these are called superscripts. Super means above, so they are above the regular line. They are a superscript letter, and what you need to note about those is that they are smaller than normal. So you would pretend that you had an extra little line and a dashed line and a top line that is smaller than the full-size letters. So they're up high and they're smaller, and they kind of are on that line like you're on your way from upstairs to the attic. If you wrote them all the way up in the attic, it might get confused with letters from a different sentence or somewhere else in the paper. So that we don't write them all the way up there. Now these guys over here are lowercase letters. Okay, uppercase, lowercase. Uppercase and capital are the same, lowercase letters. They're mostly in the downstairs. Some of them are tall enough, like this T, that stick up into the upstairs, and a lowercase h would stick up into the upstairs, or they have like a dot. And some of them dip down into the basement, like a J or a G or a P or Q, or the Y here. So they can be in the upstairs or the basement, depending on that particular letter. And it's important to note that these are also different than capital letters. Okay, sometimes people will take a lowercase a and just write it bigger, which is fine if you're writing in cursive, but if you're writing in print, you just wrote a big A. That's not the same thing. A big A looks like this instead, and a little a doesn't look like a tiny big A. They look entirely different, so that's what we're meaning when we talk about that. We'll get to that. These little letters right here are lower. These are called subscripts. Subscript letters, subscripts. You have the access to write superscript and subscript in Schoology. It's a little button that you can push that allows your letters to be bigger or smaller. If you have any trouble with that, ask your teacher so they can help you enter that in correctly. But a good thing to note about subscript is that they are smaller than normal, and they are lower also. So they're lower. They're kind of like you're on your way down into the basement. They're on that line. They're on the line here. So that's a subscript letter. So why does this matter? Well, on the periodic table, we have a bunch of different elements, and those elements are denoted by a code, a particular code, and if you look at it, they are either a capital and a lowercase or only a capital. None of them are two capital letters. None of them are two lowercase letters. Some are consonants, some are vowels. They're a wide variety, but none of them are the same either. But if you write them incorrectly, they might look like they're the same. Okay, so we have to be careful that we're writing our letters correctly. So our capital letters must be capital, our lowercase letters must be lowercase, and we'll see subscripts in our chemical formulas, not superscripts, and they must be subscripts. Okay, so let's flip this over and go to the back and talk about our chemical formulas. Okay, so here's an example. It's a doozy. Okay, notice I have a capital letter, I have a lowercase letter, and I have a subscript. And then I have a parentheses, and then I have two capital letters, another subscript, and another subscript. So when we're talking about formulas and those capital and lowercase letters, what we need to note is that capital letters signify a new element. So this F signifies a new element, the S and the O signify new elements. So if a question says, how many elements are there? F, S, and O, there are 3 elements in that particular compound. Lowercase letters go with the capitals, the capital letters, they follow. So this E is part of the F. When I look it up on periodic table, I'm not looking for F, I'm looking for FE. So this is one whole thing right here, one whole thing, one whole thing. So those lowercase letters are part of the capital letter they follow. The subscripts are generally numbers, and they also go with the letters they follow, or just one letter. Oops, I already wrote they follow. They go with the letters they follow. And the parentheses are groups. They're a group, and if you have a subscript, it goes with all of them. Goes with everything inside. Okay. So let's look at it. Oh, and if there's no number, that's because we have all these invisible ones. Okay, that says ones, like the number 1. Invisible ones. Ones are invisible. They're everywhere, but they don't change anything. Divide by 1, multiply 1, still the same thing. Okay, so let's look at it. So Fe2, SO4. So I've got Fe and a 2, and I got SO4 and a 3. So the first thing I'm going to do, like in math class, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So the parentheses has to come first. So that means that when I expand this out, I'll have Fe2, and then I have 3 of the SO4s. SO4, SO4, SO4. So then if I were to expand that out, this 2 goes with the Fe, this 4 goes with the O, this 4 goes with the O, and this 4 goes with the O. So I have Fe, Fe. I don't have any numbers on the S. That's the invisible one. So I have S, O, 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 and then I have S, O, 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 and then S, O, 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 O. Now that's going to be really important to be able to do for pretty much the rest of the school year in chemistry class, so make sure that you're really good at reading formulas and knowing what those parentheses mean. Now scientists don't like to write it this way, so they combine it and make it look like this instead. But if I need to know what I have 2 Fe's, that's iron. I have 1, 2, 3 S's, that's sulfur. And I have 4, 8, 12 oxygens. The O is for oxygen. Okay? So that's how many I have in this particular molecule. I could have written Fe2, S3, O12, but this SO4 is something special. That's why we end up with parentheses. So let's try it the other way. We got to write a formula, and we're going to write a formula for a compound with 2 carbons, 6 hydrogens, and 1 oxygen. So this is what it's going to look like. I'm just going to go the other way. So I'm going to start with my 2 C's, my 6 H's, I don't have anything else here, and my 1 oxygen. And I'm going to go the other way. C, C, H, 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 and O. I use a subscript to talk about how many I have. So I have C with a 2, the subscript goes after. I have H with a 6, it goes after, and I have an O. I don't write the 1, so I just leave it like that. So that is my formula. So that's it. So again, I've got capital letters. I didn't write any lowercase here, and then I've got a subscript number to tell me how many of the atom there is. All right, so if you need to see more examples or you have any questions, make sure you ask your teacher. Thanks for watching.